right here with me, and I appreciate that. My name is Rico Swerve, but most of you know me as Rico. I'm not about to bore you with a bunch of fancy words, so I'm just gonna jump straight to it. Let me start with a question. How many of you have been criticized by a choice you've made? I'm guessing everybody here in this room. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe it was intentional, maybe it was out of pure emotion. Maybe it's been a long time ago, but people still judging you for it. In my case, imagine being judged like that for decades because you're a felon. Not a one-time felon, but a 3-time convicted felon. If I'm being honest, I never felt like that would be my destiny. I just had an insatiable thirst for fast money, and so many people viewed me as wasted potential. But now, I stand before you as an author, a publisher, a dad, a grandfather, a homeowner, and a man striving to help others transition before it's too late. And a brother. This ain't a glorified crime story. This is a story about transformation. It's about pivoting. Growing up, I was born and raised in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Just like a lot of kids growing up in the hood, I was attracted to what looked like success, or what we thought success consisted of. The homies with the nice whips, fly clothes, the most money and the most respect. I couldn't comprehend the fast money. I couldn't comprehend that fast money at its best would lead to doing hard time, and at its absolute worst, a quick death. So at 13, I jumped off the porch, got me a hookup, $40 worth of crack cocaine that you could double into $80. Actually, the dude that sold it to me is in here right now. I'm bullshit. But think about it. 13, at the age when most kids were thinking about football, video games, and just starting to think about little girls, I started selling crack cocaine. And the ironic part about it, I was actually good at football. Today will tell you. But I decided to make decisions that would affect the next several decades of my life. At the time, it felt like the right decision, an opportunity. I mean, looking back, I eventually ended up with most of the materialistic shit I dreamed of. My resume was solid. I've been in gunfights, drug deals gone bad, houses shot up. I mean, my resume was full of street cred. But guess what else it was full of? A bunch of dumb shit that was just plain stupid. The street sold me a dream, but it didn't allow you to read the fine print. They don't talk about the prison bids. They don't tell you about the funerals. They don't mention the black dresses. You get to see mothers wearing it. I learned these lessons the hard way, and every time I thought I had the game figured out, life threw me another curveball. 3 moments that are seared into my brain happened in 1996. One, my best friend, Keanu Nesby, died. Right after that, I graduated from Spartanburg High School with honors. My mom was so proud. My future looked bright. People knew I had potential. Almost 3 weeks later, I was shipped out to prison for a drug charge. 18 days later, to be exact. One moment, I was celebrating graduation. The next, I was entering SCDC. That taught me something, albeit years later. Potential don't mean shit without direction. You can be smart, talented, and gifted, but if the direction is flawed, those gifts will bring you straight to destruction. Through observation, I learned a lot of things in prison. But the fastest thing I learned was that prison was full of talented people. I mean, I met them. Smart, creative, entrepreneurs, strategists, people that organized operations. The problem was where they chose to apply their talents. A seed was sprouted from that observation that eventually would lead to my latest book, A Movement, A New Life. I was asked one time, what was the lowest point in my life? Most people who have done time would say when they were sentenced, or that ride on the bus to prison. But I experienced that before, so those times weren't the lowest points of my life. The lowest point came one day when I woke up, got out my bed and called home from prison. And my mom told me she was on her way to go see my oldest daughter walk across the stage and graduate. That shit was like a punch in the gut. Then I realized that not only was I going to miss my baby's graduation, her last day of school, I missed her first day of school, her first day of first grade, because I was in prison then. I'm still trying to right that wrong to this day. You see, the time that you do in prison ain't the worst part of the bid. It's the moments that you miss when you're on the inside. The most important turning point for me was looking at my daughters and granddaughters. Fatherhood makes you ask different questions, like, am I setting the right example? Because children don't turn out the way you want them to be. They turn out being what they see. You see, I couldn't preach discipline when I wasn't showing self-control. So I had to pivot. I had to want them to want what I wanted. I had to become the message. November the 23rd, 2023, my mom, Evelyn Worthy, passed away. Anyone who lost a parent knows that you lose a part of your soul. But her passing reminded me that tomorrow ain't promised. Life is shorter than we anticipate. People think that we have time that we may not have. You're thinking someday I'll change. Someday I'll start a business. Someday I'll be the person I'm meant to be. The problem with that is someday ain't promised. And that clock is moving, whether you is or not. So I'm reaching out to young people, formerly incarcerated people, working people, anybody trying to reinvent themselves. The message is simple. You don't have to pivot perfectly. You just got to pivot consistently. I cannot count the times that I messed up, and that's including times when I knew I was on the right track. When I got them CDLs, y'all, I was knocking shit over left and right. I knocked over a stop sign. I hit a whole house before. I remember hitting a forklift with my trailer and damn near knocking the dude off of it. But no matter how discouraged I got, I was adamant about pushing through. Remember, every journey begins with that first step, and it's not supposed to be easy. That's why it's a journey. I'd like to leave y'all with one more thought. Years ago, people looked at me as a drug-dealing felon. Some people saw wasted potential, a statistic. But they were looking at the old me, the version of me I buried in 2019. Let them write you off. But remember, the most important chapter in your life doesn't have to be the first chapter. It needs to be the one you're writing now. Turn that step back into your step up. My name is Zarikus Worthy, and if a brother from the streets who went to prison learned how to reinvent himself at this old age, then anybody can make that pivot.